EMR, and we're going to talk about how we use your EMR and your EMR settings, because before you centralize or consolidate anything, you want to make sure that you optimize it. And what I found is that even the best practices have a gap between the ideal usage of their EMR and then how they're actually using it. And it varies by organization, but what I find typically has happened, and I'm trying to show this in this slide here, but if you look at the slide in 2015, you have an EMR implementation. And right below that, you see this green circle and the red circle are together. So basically, the red circles represent the practice and the green circles represent the EMR. And on the day of implementation, they're usually right in the same place. When you implement a new EMR system, they're training you in best practices. You're using it optimally at that point in time. And what happens is that organizations either go through a lot of EMR changes and they aren't using it optimally, or some of the organizations that started out using their EMR correctly, just over time, what happens is there are a series of events that happen that eventually cause a gap between best practices and how you're using it. And that's what I'm trying to show here, because as you can see, on day one, everybody's aligned. But then let's say in 2016, a year after you implement, one of your key staff leave the practice. Let's say that they got some great EMR implementation skills and they were hired by another company and they left your practice with that knowledge. And so you've had some staff turnover, new people come in, they've worked with other systems. They may want to use your system the same way they did other systems somewhere else, or they bring in other people's workflows and practices that maybe are not ideal. And so as you see this red line, it kind of deteriorates over time. So, your optimal use of that EMR tends to decline as you have turnover and that collective knowledge gets adulterated along the way by other people from other practices, that weren't there on day one during the implementation. And then if you follow the green line here, what happens is if you've had your EMR for any length of time, so let's say you implemented it in 2015 and it's now 2020. Well, in this chart here, I'm showing that there's an upgrade in 2018. Well, in reality, who really reads those release notes that you get from your EMR? Who really, takes time out of their day to go out and, see what their EMR is doing differently and implement it? I don't see that very often. Usually everybody's so busy with the day-to-day that, they don't have time to do that proactively. So your EMR's performance is increasing over time as you get enhancements. Maybe that is telemedicine capabilities, or it's online scheduling, or it's better patient notifications. But for whatever reason, your EMR now has additional capabilities that you weren't trained on back in 2015 when you bought it, because they were released later on. And now if you look at the divergence between the green dot and the red dot here in 2020, you've now got a gap. And that's just natural. It happens over time, as I said, because of turnover and the evolution of the EMR. It's highly unlikely, and in fact, I haven't seen it anywhere where the practice has stayed in step with the EMR throughout the entire journey over years and years of time. So that's where I'm going to show you how to optimize your EMR use, how to find out what that gap is and what those things are that make up that gap, so that you can correct them and close the gap and optimize your use before we go and centralize all of these functions, because you don't want to centralize any inefficiencies and you don't want to miss out on key features that can make you more efficient and can provide better service for your patients. So I'm going to show you exactly how to define that gap and exactly how to hone in on those things to fix as the next step.